And we're gonna start the show with that That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching FOODCASTER. Do not change your station. Do not click away. You're watching FOODCASTER. Everything about having a relationship with food. That's right. And today we've got Sam Eats Plants, and I'm Black Chef, and we're gonna talk about some stuff here.
Yes.
So, Sam, it's interesting. We were talking off the air, and we were talking about just how we're programmed. We're programmed as a society because we are animals as well, and sometimes we're programmed to what to eat, and some of those things might not be good for you.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, only in the last couple of years, because of some documentaries, like some plant-based documentaries, have been making waves on streaming services, and people have been talking about, hey, certain diseases, certain ailments are hereditary. But what we realize is that when you check the stats, it's really not hereditary. It's because culturally, people in your family have been eating certain things, and if you eat what they've been eating, you would end up with the same thing. So I want to talk about that. Can we debunk that? Can we back that? What are you thinking?
Well, you know what I thought about as you were speaking?
What were you thinking about speaking about it right there? When I talk about what I speak about that?
He's so country. One of the things that was said to me many times over many years when it comes to like changing diet and what I've decided does not really work for us is I'm just fine. My mom did this growing up. She's fine. Or I had this growing up. It's fine for my child. That seems to be a really recurring statement I hear whenever my ideas about food and health, if they feel challenged by them. I did this growing up. I'm fine. A few things I noticed, though. They're not fine. What we have done is normalized ailing. So they might have eczema. They may have extreme allergies. And they're standing there saying, I'm just fine. Like, I grew up eating this and I'm fine. They don't see that it's not fine because we're supposed to feel like it just happens to us, This is just normal. And then on top of that, there is a programming about milk when you're a child, milk from cows when you're a child. There's a programming about heavy grains when you're a child. There's a programming of 2 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables when you're a child, or just as a country, as an adult, even we're all programmed. And so when something runs counter to that, for most people, the first reaction is defensiveness and to reject it. And we're talking about food right now, but this goes for anything that kind of challenges the paradigm that you've decided is normal. Because it is very shocking for our psyche. And it's kind of violent for our psyche to think that something that we believe for 20, 30, 40 years is incorrect. And so, of course, it's very human to say, absolutely not. And at that time, it will then take a few more years or a couple more decades or never to realize where we've had misinformation and to decide that they want to change it. So we were programmed 3 meals a day. We have words for it. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. We have names for it.
And it's interesting how it works so smoothly between the work hours.
Yeah, you eat before you get to work, you have a lunch break, and you eat when you go home. So we've normalized it. So when people act outside of it, in general, there are people who are more flexible now. But when people act outside of it, we think they're not eating right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You need to have breakfast. What are you doing? You have to have breakfast. Do we? Or even you have to eat more than once a day. Do we? Maybe not. But more than that is food choices. So to counter one of the things that's said a lot, my grandmother smoked cigarettes and had canned jelly her whole life, and she lived till 90. It's yes, that's true. Your grandmother also was born before GMO crops were in our fields. Your grandmother was also born before we started doing just modern day agriculture using insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, pesticides, because that only started after World War II. So your grandmother's start on life was way more healthy and way more less chemicals. Our start in life is not. Our start in life is off from when we're in the womb. And so we can't use your grandmother did all these habits that we consider unhealthy and lived to be 90. We can't use that as an example because we're dying more. We're in the generation that's not going to outlive their parents, and there's so many kids now who are dealing with issues that only adults did in the 70s. So something's not working. And what we need to do is break down those feelings and the ego of what we've decided is normal and really challenge ourselves to break through and look beyond. And I think also understanding that we're brainwashed. And when I say brainwashed, I just mean it in a very neutral sense, not like a negative sense. We are brainwashed. We are programmed. It's fine. Like, that's what we do. We're animals. That's why we have cultures. The different cultures do different things because that's what the group did. And now we normalize it, right? That's fine. But it's great if we can come to a place where we understand the psychology of us as humans and start to sit with, okay, this is traditional, but should it be? And should I continue it?
Yeah, that's a lot right there. There was one documentary I saw on a streaming service, and it had these Aborigine women, and they were saying how, they were healthy before they were conquered, and once they were conquered, they got the starches and the starch flours and the soda and the other thing, and all of a sudden, they were saying that for centuries they worried about people only died because of accidents and old age. That was it. But now they were overridden with diabetes and heart problems and high blood pressure. And by the end of the documentary, they were changing their diet, they were doing certain things, and all of a sudden, diabetes went away. People, if they had type 2, it went down to type 1, I believe, or something like that, and major changes. I can't remember which one's better than the other, I don't know. But I'm just
saying. You don't go from type 1 to type 2.
What is it? I don't know.
But you can just reverse type 2, period. Like, reversing type 2 is actually quite easy and very simple. And people don't know that. But yeah, the story you just said is a story that happens everywhere. I mean, they say this about major cities in Japan, major cities in China, how, like, when you compare people in the cities that have more access to all this, like, kind of BS food, manufactured food that we do now in our modern food systems, and you compare it to people in rural China, they don't have liver cancer, they don't have high cholesterol, they don't have these things. Same in India. India, in certain areas, of course, they're going through a revolution of food because they're realizing in some of the major cities, and everyone has to work a lot more, just like in America. Everyone works a lot more, so they're not cooking as much. And in traditional Indian cooking, I mean, you're talking about like multiple ingredients, because their tradition with spices and the medicinal value of them has been very strong and has continued within how they cook. And now they're going to fast food more often or just eating out because they're working like Americans. And there's been a small little revolution of like aunties, Indian aunties, kind of like cooking mass amounts of home cooked foods, packaging them up, and then selling them to these very busy business people in some of these cities, because it is also giving them the same diseases we have. And I think people need to also remember we have the most chronic diseases in America out of every country in the planet. We have the most. But as we influence other countries, and specifically the major cities, they start getting our diseases. So it already shows you it's a disease of behavior and lifestyle, and not diseases of genetics, like you were mentioning earlier at the top of the show. It's less about genetics and more about your behavior.
Whoa, that's amazing. Yep, that's amazing. Thank you for co-signing, but that's amazing. Yeah. So what do we do about that? And
That's
and
a great question.
you know what? I have two parts of that, but you answer that just as you feel you need to answer. But what do we do about this kind of cultural engineering?
First, we have to recognize that it exists. That's always
Right.
step.
Okay.
And then once we do that, we need to reach out to either do your own research or reach out to people who do the research that you think or feel that you can trust, and you begin to change it. I mean, that's what I did. I did not really think about health in these ways because I was always kind of thin and athletic, and I played soccer and I danced. And then
Show off.
uh, once I lost health insurance and I was like, oh, let me see what it means to be healthy, it just really led me down this rabbit hole of like, oh my gosh, that's why I have acne. And I'm like, I'm healthy. I'm like, no, I have acne. That's not healthy. I have dry scalp. That's not healthy. You know, um, things like that. So the number one thing is recognizing that the brainwashing the program is there, and then to sit with it and see how you feel when you realize everything you learned is a lie. I'm kidding, but a lot of what you learned is not universally true. You know, and then start making small changes here and there with the goal that it will be bigger and bigger changes as the months and the years progress. And allow yourself to take time and remember that you're doing this for your own longevity and to teach your progeny, if you have children or just children in your community, to teach them how to have a life that's not that where they can control their own health outcomes. And I think that's another thing. I realize not everybody wants to have the full responsibility of their own health. It's true. Some people, it's for me, it was comforting to know, oh, I can make decisions that can change the outcome of my health. But for some people, that's not comforting. They want things to be random so they don't have to decide to be better and to change and to shift and to do different things. It's not comforting. They want somebody else to tell them, take this pill. They want someone else to schedule a surgery for them. They want it. Even if they say they don't, it's in their minds. They don't want it to be their control. It's just easier to release it and say, it wasn't me, it was just my genes.
It's very interesting you say that because had this conversation with a family member. Well, the government says, or what I learned in school back in the day, and they just want to stay right there. And times have changed. People messing around with the biological makeup. Is that the thing? The DNA of food.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So all those. So we can't talk about back in the day, and also
And
some of the things they taught weren't necessarily true about food.
we didn't talk about back in the day because exactly that. They weren't necessarily true and we know it. So if the argument is, well, the government says XYZ, the government also killed Native Americans with smallpox blankets. The government also experimented on Black men with syphilis in the South. The government also ran HIV medical trials in Harlem in the 90s, right? Without people knowing. So the government says, okay, the government has also done things that have killed or maimed us. I mean, the government bombed its own people in Philadelphia with the movement, okay, in the 80s. So there's a lot that they said. So if someone says, well, the government says so, we'll just say, well, what else the government has says? This is also what they say. And if they say, like, well, I learned this in school, the government also had put in a textbook back when Malcolm X was in school that Black people were shiftless and liked to work with their hands, right? So...
And it's funny because this goes back to an earlier episode that I first starred in. That, personal responsibility. You can't just throw it to somebody else. And again, I know information is limited, but at least seek it. At least attempt. It's your body. It's your life.
Yeah, but we also have to go back to not everybody wants to be their own advocate or have agency of their own life. They'd rather someone else do it. And those things are very real. But for those who are like those like doers, those go-getters, like those are the ones that will actually like shift and change. You said something earlier that made me think of something.
I tend to do that.
But seeking information, if you so choose. And also, in terms of like, this entity said so, this school system said so, this government said so. At the end of the day, all these institutions are made up of people like us, and we make mistakes. They make mistakes. They're not better than us because maybe they have certain letters behind their name, or they wear a white coat. They're not more.
Hey! I wear a white coat.
They're not more or less than us just because they're in these institutions. This is why they say people practice medicine and they practice law, because we're all practicing. All of us, me too, we're all practicing. And sometimes we get it wrong. So that's another thing, to not just give it up to something higher than you. When I say higher, I mean like institutions. Don't just give it up to something higher than you, because it's still just full of people. You know, back in the day, in the 30s, was the beginning of this idea of child psychology, because there was a true belief among these like scientists, these psychologists, that the psyche of the children is like dispensable. Like it's nothing. Like it doesn't matter. You can do things around children and nothing happens. Like, and now we know that's completely false. So much of what we are as adults is because of our experience of children. Child psychology was laughed at to even make it into its own entity back in the 30s. It was laughed at. Like it didn't matter. So let me tell you, we're all practicing. So don't just give it up to an institution. Hear what they say, sit with it, see if it resonates, and maybe do a little thing if it doesn't resonate, and see like, you know, where it falls. And then don't be afraid to be wrong about it.
Well, this is something for the kiddies. Anybody that's young, listen, they're like, you know, maybe they're preteen, or maybe they're 7 years old and they're watching this show. Well, good for you, by the way. And what do they do if they start Googling, they start researching, they start watching these documentaries, and they're going against the grain of their culture? I've heard of people say, you know, my parents, you know, we eat a lot of pork and rice and certain things, or chicken and you know, whatever, steak every day or whatever like that. But it's part of a family tradition. What advice would you give to young people that say, listen, I think this might not be right. What do I do?
This is real because you don't have a lot of your own agency yet, because you know other people are taking care of you. So one thing to do, and everyone's different. Some parents are more receptive than others, and some people rule more with an iron fist than others. One is see if you can educate them by just showing them a website you saw, or showing them, you know, a podcast you heard. And then if it's not really well received, maybe eventually maybe you will have the words that are better, that make sense. If you have a variety of foods at home, a lot of times some of those kids can choose to eat more of this and less of this. Or you can ask your parents if they can buy more grapes, or if you want to learn how to start making things yourself, you can go on YouTube if you can't learn from your parent, because not all parents feel like teaching their kids how to cook. But you can go on YouTube and try one small thing, and then get real good at it, and then try another. By the time you're somewhere around 15, you'll have a whole lot more agency even underneath your parents, and you can start kind of doing a little bit more of what you want. And your parents may take your words a little bit more seriously, and you can maybe make more decisions. I have friends who like went vegetarian while they were still like living at home, and some of them, their parents just like, you got to cook your own food then, and they were like, okay, and they just did. And sometimes it's easy like that, and for some people it's not that easy. Some people are like, you're not getting up unless you finish this pork, you know. So only the individual knows where those lines are in their own family.
All right. Well, what advice would you give parents, especially you being a parent, what would you say to parents that say, hey, our kid wants to go another way when reference to food, or they keep complaining, or what do you say to them?
I would say just first listen. It's kind of this new thing. I don't even want to call it new age. It's kind of a new thing for parents to really listen to their child and hear them out and allow them to have a bit of agency for themselves. But I think it's very powerful if the kids see that you hear them out and you at least ponder what they say. So first listen, see how it resonates with you, and then have a discussion, and then see if like you guys can find information that either validates or invalidates what was said. Another thing is I find it very important for kids to have agency under your own rules and discipline. So maybe allow them to begin to cook, and maybe share in some of their ideas. I got parents from another country where it's like, you just do what I say, and there's a place for that. There's a way that those kids turn out and they can be very like accomplished. But are they completely whole? Maybe, maybe not. So I really, really advocate as a parent in general to listen to your kids about anything. Like, we're talking about food, but I mean anything, and hear them. Because there's a lot of wisdom they have, and there's a lot of truth they have if we can get out of our own egos and like get out of the way.
Yeah, it's a brand new space that we're entering, and we have access to so much knowledge, but also so much garbage from online too. So we really got to shift through that and kind of see. But this is where I guess food journalists and people out there, because there are people that focus on food, but I do find that a lot of people focus on food are just like tasters. Ooh, this tastes good. Ooh, that looks pretty, and not necessarily the value that it brings to the body. So how do we shift through that?
We have to fight against the instant gratification that has been very normalized in lots of cultures, specifically very American culture. Like, I want this now. Ooh, that smells good. I want it now. We need to sit with that feeling, because it's very animal to see something and want it right now and do it right now.
Right.
And the one thing that would make us different from other mammals is understanding that behavior, seeing how it can be destructive, working on it and shifting it. That is the one difference we have with animals. The thing is, most people don't understand that they're not doing that they are continuously, ooh, this looks good, I want to buy it right now,
Right.
So one thing is just to move slower in your decisions. Like, I've had to like teach myself this. Move slower in your decisions. So when that impulse comes, like, oh my God, I want this, I've been wanting this, then release it and come back to it in a couple hours, in a couple days, maybe weeks, sometimes even months, I swear. Come back to it, because you start to learn you don't need it at all. And then you start to see, oh, you know what? I'm glad I didn't, because now I have money for this. Or I'm glad I didn't because my friend made this really great stuff and it would have gone to waste if I ate something else. We need to start doing that. And then also, we need to really cook at home. We need to do things in the house. We need to come back to that. And sometimes it's helpful if it's cooperative. If your family is close, or if you're good with your neighbors, or if you have roommates, a great way to start eating really well is like, okay, you are really into making breads. That's cool. I'm gonna start making stews. I'll give you some stew every time I make.
I made a soup the other day. You'd be so proud. I gotta send you pictures.
Oh, I'd love to see it, because I don't make soups enough, and my son loves soup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's another way to do it. Like, be cooperative with it, because it's hard in this life, because we have very fast lives and we keep moving around. But we have to start relying on each other again. If this is the paradigm shift, Age of Aquarius.
You know what's interesting? I'm a sucker for what's it? Bok choy. That's my new thing.
Is it?
Yeah, that's my new thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that doesn't sound that exciting for y'all. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Cause I'm not even sure I know how to spell it, but I know how to eat it.
BOK space CHOY.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, it's cool. You know what? Even saying that, if you have the space and the ability to play with new foods that are vegetable or fruits, do that. That's always nice. Add a little something more to your diet, but also just to
I
your
like that
like,
little dance you did.
but
Yeah.
also your own creativity. Because if you get creative, you get into it a lot more.
Yeah, I do tend to get bored sometimes. Like, what am I gonna make today? Because I find, like, I love mushrooms, but now I gotta get like all the fancy. There's like a chef mix of all different types of mushrooms. That's my new thing now. Just
That's
to say it again.
that's nice.
Yeah. Just to change it up, because it does get boring.
Yeah, it can be. And it's also how you see it. Some people have decided, I'm going to eat oatmeal every breakfast. I'm going to eat the sandwich every lunch. I'm going to eat this rice and beans every dinner. And they're happy with it. And so they just leave them. They're happy with that. Leave it. I'm not really built like that. I need some creativity. I need to change it up. So, but it does get easier if you don't care what it is. Like if you don't care about variety, it is easier.
Yeah. All right, tell everyone your social media.
You can find me at Sam Eats Plants on Instagram.
All right. Yes, you watching Foodcaster. We really appreciate you. And I got a little effect. So now when something we don't like, and we're gonna put it back there, put it put it in the oven and cook it, kill all the germs. We're gonna say. We're gonna do that right there. I think hold on a second. I'll put the volume up right there. It's gonna be like boom. Yeah, so that's you'll see it. They know what's going on right there. So yeah, check us out. Go to geekcaster.com. You can watch all the different episodes of Foodcaster. You can go to the IG, The Real Foodcaster. If you watch it on cable, really appreciate you. Can doing that, and support Sam Eats Plants. And Sam, in this decade, I want to see you do more art stuff because you're an artist. You got You got that all hidden up in there.
I play piano. That's it.
You see? You see how you start a conversation? Next thing you know, yeah. Say something else, Sam. I know you got more in there.
Not really. I mean, I used to dance, but I can't really do anything like that anymore. I have a knee injury, so that's done.
Yeah. All right. There's more to come, for sure. But please support and enjoy your journey on food, as we go into this. Now we're in it. We're in the decade now.
Yes.
We're no more playing games. It's a thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Come together, everybody. Help each other with our diets, with our health. Support each other. Support farmers. Support farmers markets. Let's do this.
All right, now let me just put up the music and then mute it like them old TV shows and start dancing and stuff. Yeah. You're watching Foodcast.